And this is my friend Jeremy. Let's welcome Jeremy. Yeah. And Jeremy has a really cool story to share. We've invited him up here. We wanted to make sure that his voice gets heard, especially it feels timely for today. So Jeremy, tell us what God's been up to and how have you been responding?
Yep. Man, I just did this last service and I'm still so nervous. What is going on? So this past Lent, my wife and I, for those of you who don't know, have been struggling with infertility. And so for Lent, we decided we were going to Lent the idea of having kids. And by the end of it, it was actually like an amazing experience. We just felt super unified, on the same page, and God just really was with us in that time. And so coming out of it, we had this big question of like, all right, Lord, what's next? What is the question mark that is kids? And we had made the decision that we were going to fast from food once a week to just give space to the Lord to speak to us in that area of our lives. Long answer short, he didn't answer that question. But instead, he had decided that there were things about me and my identity and my heart that he wanted to work on this 3-month journey of fasting. And so one of the biggest things is I've always had a voice in the back of my head that has been yelling at me since I was a kid that has told me that I'm not smart, I'm not intelligent, I'm not well-spoken, I'm not articulate. And that is something I have carried like a weight to my leg since, like I said, I was a kid. And the Lord just helped me out so much in that he had decided to really encourage me through my wife and through friends to go back to school, which is something I had never envisioned for myself. And the funny thing is I committed to doing it, but I only got 2 classes. And the 2 classes were public speaking, which I hate public speaking for those very reasons. I don't want to sound dumb. And then I got political science. So kind of an interesting 2 choices. But the public speaking, obviously you all can understand why the Lord put me in that class. But political science, I was just struggling. Like the teacher was hard, the topics were hard, the conversations were hard. But by the end of it, after wanting to drop out like 20 times, I came to my wife like once a week of being like, can I stop this? And by the end of it, I had got an A in the class. And the Lord was just so good in showing me, like, you are intelligent. You can do this. You are smart. Like, there is nothing stopping you from thinking that about yourself. Like, there's no reason to think that. And then another part that he really wanted to work on was just finances. Like, I had gotten to a weird place in our life, or in my life, where I had a lot of security and faith and hope in a certain number in my savings account. And the Lord just, sat me down. He was like, like that is not where security comes from. That is not where peace comes from. And it was kind of affecting our marriage because my wife really wanted to expand on this money and do things with it. And I was just kind of like, well, we'll talk about it when the right time comes for like a house or for something else. And the Lord, I just remembered like I was opening up my Bible and it was just constant verses about like being a good steward of your money and like money that sits is no better than money that is being recklessly spent. And I was like, all right, geez, like gut punch. And so the Lord just really softened my heart and gave me the ability to like see that putting faith in anything other than him is not the right way of going on your day to day. And the last thing, which like this last year, a lot of people have been speaking to me about, is that the time I have left? Oh, great. I'm ahead of schedule. People had been coming up to me a lot, speaking the word leadership over me. And obviously, when you think a lot of the things about yourself that I was thinking, leadership was not on the plate for me. That was not something I could ever see myself being or doing. And I wish I could point to something specific in the last 3 months of fasting that the Lord said or did, but he just changed my heart. And maybe it was through the schooling, through the spending time with him and all these things. But like, I just came out of it super on fire of like, I am a leader. And so when our life group leaders had to step down and they asked us to become the new leaders, it was just like a quick yes. Like, I'm ready for that. And if they would have asked me like a year ago, I would have said no. Like, that's a hard no. There's no way I am leading, speaking in front of people and doing those things. Granted, we've been on summer break, so we haven't actually led the life group.
It's a little easier when you're not doing it.
That was 3 months ago. They asked us that, or 2 months ago. But I realized in like a self-reflection, like the Lord wasn't wanting me to actually be a leader for the sake of just leading that group. It was an obedience thing of like, you committed to this, you can do this. Whether or not that life group for some reason never meets again, you are a leader. And so if someone asks you to step up or you feel called to step up, you now know you have the ability to say yes. Like that's all I wanted was that yes part of becoming a leader for your group. And so overall, fasting for 3 months was just great. I really encourage it if you guys are ever going through a tough season, needing answers, or just wanting to grow that relationship with the Lord. Fasting is just such like a crazy connection between the flesh and the spirit, and the Lord just really like leans into you when you're in that position and in that state. And you know, if it wasn't for that, I don't know, my identity is just it's completely different from the last 3 months that it is to now. And so it was just a great journey of something where I realized I had this vision of like, I was putting dominoes up in my life in a certain position, like get married, get the house, get the job, have kids, do all these things. And the Lord made me realize like he had his own dominoes and he was knocking them down in the position that he wanted to, in a way where it was about like things that he wanted to work on that I couldn't see. And I was so focused on what I wanted. And he was like, well, I want to focus on the things like that I want for you. So would have never realized that if I didn't step into this season of fasting.
I love it so much. And it's like he's speaking your identity over you, but then you're taking steps to walk in the identity that he's given you. And then another thing comes up. So like you're up here speaking in public.
Yeah.
We're in public.
And I'm not nervous anymore.
And,
Wow.
and you're just such a good, you are a leader here, and we're so grateful for you, Jeremy. Your voice matters, and I love the way you're saying yes to him. Let's thank Jeremy. So thank you so much. And let's also, in the same clap, let's welcome up Brian. He's going to preach today.
All right. Hey, everybody. Jeremy, you're such a boss. It's awesome. Hi, for those of you who are newer to our community, and maybe this is your first time, again, we just want to say you're most welcome here. We're so glad you're here. My name is Brian. I get to be the justice pastor here, and I am excited to start a new series. But before we do that, I want to talk specifically about our lead pastor, Chad. He is on a month-long break. And this is something that we baked in from the very beginning of Oak House. We said, hey, we want the lead pastor to be able to have time to be refreshed, to be restored, to get ahead, to dream, and do all of these wonderful things. And so we put into the very beginning of Oak House's start a month space for the lead pastor to be able to go away and just enjoy God, enjoy life, and get ahead. And so Chad's going to be spending a couple of weeks on just vacation, enjoying family, and doing some fun stuff. And then he's going to spend 2 weeks specifically on a study break that will be him working, but working differently. And so he won't be around here for a month, but just know he is doing good work for our church. And so pray for him as he's away. Pray for their families as they're able to lean in and have just a great time together. So so that's what's going on with him. But in the meantime, I'm going to be preaching today, and then we have some amazing people that are going to be preaching over the next few weeks. We've got one that's going to be a panel. So it is going to be an exciting series talking about how to get slow. And so get ready, get excited. It's going to be great. And then the other thing, specifically as we get started, is we want to resource you. It's one thing for us to just get up here and like say a bunch of words and all of that, but we want to make sure that you have some actual, tangible, practical means by which to slow life down. So there's QR code. You can scan it right now. You're going to get an email. It'll be in the app. It'll be on the website. It'll be everywhere. And we're going to continue to talk about it throughout the month. So here's how I want to get you started, and this is my dare to you. If you want to start considering what it's like to slow down your life, I want you to drive no faster than the speed limit for a whole week. Okay, and I'm not kidding. I did it for a week, and it exposed all kinds of things about me that I am not glad about. But it gave me ways to pray, mostly about like all the people, like and whatever. It was just the whole thing. So anyway, but it's that kind of stuff. So it'll be stuff that's really practical, and it'll also be kind of the big spiritual, like bright and shining moments. God comes down in a cloud of glitter, and like it's just all that stuff. So it's everything in between. Okay, all right. So let's start talking about being slow. Here's what I want to do first. I want to slow down myself. I want us to slow down. I know that there are, for as many people as in this room, there's at least that many conversations going on. Maybe you're having 2 or 3 conversations at one time about something you're going to do after, something just happened, something happened yesterday or this past week or something that's next week. And there are all of these ways where we crash into this reality together where we're sped up. So I just want you to take a breath, take a second. I love that we take this pause in giving to just take 10 seconds to remind yourself that gratitude is a big deal. And so in that same way, I want to just take 10 seconds for you to remind yourself that slowing down can have some really great benefits. So slow down for just a second. As I've been prepping to intro the series, I'm trying to not say stuff that everybody's going to say behind me and do all that. And so it's been kind of an interesting journey to get to here being on stage talking to you guys about all this stuff. And I started to wonder, like, what's my job? Like, how is it that I set this thing up? And I started to almost feel like, am I like Slow's hype man? Like, am I like, let's go slow? But only after we pause with some quiet reflection. And maybe that's the case, but maybe there's also more to what's going on. And in the way that I talked about that there are all of these conversations that we're currently having, either with someone or with ourselves or with the Lord or whatever, I want to be able to provide all kinds of starter conversations for you to have with God. And so I feel like my job today is to go, here's a bunch of things that you and the Lord can talk about right now. And you can talk about them right now. You can talk about them at the end of service. You can talk about them this week. You can talk about them this month, maybe even for a lifetime. And so let's just open up to some conversations that we can have. By show of hands, I'd love to see how many of you feel like you operate at a pretty fast pace. Okay? All right, how many of you feel like it's probably a good idea to slow down? Okay, how many of you are smashing it? You're like, yep, check, got it. Anybody? Oh, we have one. We had two in first service. Okay, so what I want to talk about, and I feel like where maybe a lot of this conversation is going to be in the reality and then also in the dream. The dream scenario of I'm slowing down, like I'm just zen and chill, and like I'm just like, nothing can touch me, all of that stuff, right? But we have this reality that is chaos. We have this reality that is so much. We have this reality that has a laundry list of to-dos, including laundry. But then over here, it's like, but I mean, I know it's a good thing. I'm not totally sure how to get there, or maybe I'm sure how to get there, but it just feels hard. It feels overwhelming. I did it yesterday, but oh my gosh, doing it 2 days in a row, and so on, and so on, and so on. And so the invitation is to start a conversation. We are not going to button this thing up by the end. I mean, maybe you and the Lord can, but I have no expectations on you that by the end of this, you're like, I have a new rhythm. Like I am just like, I was going at 100, and now I'm going at 85, okay? Maybe that can happen, but maybe what happens is God starts to spark something inside of you that goes, there's that one thing that I can do in the midst of chaos that I can pick to slow down, to slow my mind down, to slow my schedule down, to slow whatever. And I think of this a lot like I think about personally working out and having a good balanced diet and all of those things. You can do it for a day, but that doesn't mean that you're healthy. Okay? And so what we're talking about is a conversation that begins now that continues. I would love for this to continue for the rest of your life, the rest of my life, and the rest of our collective lives as a church. So there are a couple of Harvard Business Review articles that I was reading that I feel like are kind of helpful in this conversation. I was thinking about like what's fast, what goes in fast ways, and when we think about corporations and all of that, obviously speed comes to mind. In 2012, just as Facebook was preparing to go public on the stock market, Mark Zuckerberg penned a letter to potential investors. Within the letter, he included the 5 core values that they were going to hold as a company, and he claimed that his employees were going to run with as fast as they could. one of those 5 values was titled Move Fast. Moving fast, he wrote, enables us to bring more things and to learn faster. However, most companies, when they grow, they slow down too much because they're more afraid of making mistakes than they are of losing opportunities by moving slowly. We have a saying, move fast and break things. The idea is that if you never break anything, you're probably not moving fast enough. Fast forward to 2014. Mark Zuckerberg is called to a congressional hearing because they broke stuff. Facebook in 2014 officially changed their motto to move fast with stable infrastructure. And so my question to you is, did they learn their lesson? Another article, many of today's entrepreneurs live by Facebook founders Mark Zuckerberg's now famous motto, move fast and break things. And Zuckerberg intended for this to inform internal design and management process, but it aptly captured how entrepreneurs regard disruption. More is always better, they say. The article concludes this way. In short, the move fast and break things era is over. Minimum viable products must be replaced by minimum virtuous products. So as we think about the internet, as we think about social media, as we think about generative AI, how are we doing? How are we doing interfacing with it, and how are we doing having it be a part of our reality? What would moving slowly have to say about that interface? John Ortberg, he's been a pastor for forever, and he was a pastor at a giant megachurch, and he had a mentor named Dallas Willard. Dallas Willard, a theologian, pastor, professor of philosophy, and John was talking about wanting to be the kind of pastor that he wanted to be. And so he's asking Willard, how do I do it? Like I'm at this mega church with all of these responsibilities, with all of these expectations that I have, but also that people are placing on me. How do I be the pastor that I want to be? And also be the pastor that I need to be and that I'm supposed to be? And what do I do? You know, and he's saying all these words. And after a long pause, Willard, in his very famous, wise, slow way, responded this way: you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. John, if you want to be the pastor that you want to be, ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. This became one of those moments. This became one of those conversations that pastors started sharing with each other, and it eventually works its way from John Ortberg to a guy that he starts to mentor by the name of John Mark Comer. John Mark Comer begins to have a lot of conversations about what does it mean to ruthlessly eliminate hurry, and he wrote a book about it. I feel like this is one of the seminal works that we currently have in Christianity, specifically about work, technology, and how it is that we interface as followers of Jesus. I basically just wanted to get up here and read chapters 1 and 2 to you as the sermon, and we could all go away really glad, but I chose to do my own thing. But I am saying, please read this book. It's just so stinking good. Sorry? It is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. That's the name of the book. So there you go. And the foreword's by John Ortberg, so there you go. Ann Voskamp, she talks about hurry, and she stated it this way, and this resonates so deeply with me. At every level of life, in all judgment and efforts to get things done, hurry and impatience are sure marks of the amateur. I feel like that sums me up. I am amateur hour walking around with this stuff. I want to go fast because I feel like I need to go fast. I want to slow down because I know I'm supposed to slow down. And it's just constantly amateur hour with me and the reality and the hope and this gap between. So how do we close this gap? How do we not necessarily maybe even close it all the way, but narrow it? How do we operate in this space where we go, I have so much going on, but there's also so much that I want. Martin Luther famously said, when asked about his schedule, and again, this is in the 1500s, when asked about his schedule, he said, I have so much to do today that I cannot but spend an hour in prayer. And as we consider, wait, say that again? And he's like, yes, my schedule is so full that if I don't spend at least an hour praying before I do all of this stuff, how on earth will I get anything done? Does not compute. Dallas Willard, again, he has been famously helpful with Christianity in so many different ways. And another one of his mentors, Bill Guthrie, was sitting with him at lunch one day, and Bill's wound up, and he was kind of doing the thing. And so Willard just asked him a simple question in his very straightforward, slow way. Willard asked him, if you could describe Jesus with one word, what would it be? Now, Guthrie he's a blogger, he's a spiritual director, he's an author, he's learned, he's wise. And so immediately he has 1,000 words to describe Jesus. And so as he's processing through all of the possible words, he's also trying to get the right answer because, he's sitting in front of Dallas Willard and oh my goodness, and all this stuff, and he's just wound up. And eventually, not saying anything, he kind of looks at Willard like, dude, help a brother out. And Willard pauses. And he says, the one word that I would choose to describe Jesus is relaxed. That would not have made my list if you gave me 100 times, 1,000 times. But even in saying it, all of a sudden it starts to make all kinds of sense. Jesus was meeting with a crowd. They're acting weird. He's trying to help them out. And eventually he invites them into kingdom living in a very specific and different way, even than what would have been taking place 2,000 years ago. At the end of Matthew chapter 11, these words are recorded, and I love the way that Eugene Peterson wrote it. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me. Work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live life freely and lightly. What an invitation. And that same invitation that was given 2 millennia ago to a group of people who were hungry and confused is the same invitation that Jesus is giving us, people who are hungry and confused. Come away with me. Let's do this together. Are you stressed out, burned out, worn out? Come on. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk. Do you want to see how it's done? I'll model it. And as we're doing this together, you're going to learn the way that I have interfaces, interactions, the way that I'm considering God in the midst of this rhythm that I'm doing of life. I'll show you how to take a real rest in the middle of wild things. Mark chapter 1. It's time for lunch in his public ministry, and Jesus is unhurried and goes to the desert to pray. As he begins his formal ministry, the first thing he does is pause. He goes into the wilderness for a long time to get right, to get ready, to be restored, to be refreshed, to go. When his family tries to manipulate him in front of a crowd, he calmly sets boundaries. In Mark chapter 4, when a crowd interrupts his retreat, His retreat, he is away. He's doing the thing. He's like, I'm going to make space for me and the Father to go get right. While he is there, the crowd comes. And instead of being frustrated, instead of being put out, he feeds them. In the same chapter, Mark records that after he does all this stuff, he's like, oh my gosh. And I have to imagine the exhaustion that he would have felt through so many of these different moments. He finally gets on a boat with his disciples and says, let's go to the other side. As he's there, he falls asleep, probably from exhaustion, and a storm comes up. And we find Jesus in the middle of a storm, asleep. The disciples wake him up terrified. We're going down. And he's like, oh, you little faiths, you. Wind, calm down. Waves, chill out. He sees loan sharks and hucksters turning God's house into a marketplace because they're taking advantage of the poor. And before he turns over tables and shows righteous anger, he takes time to fashion a whip. What was that prayer time like? While being tortured to death, Luke records in Luke 23 that he lovingly ministers to everyone around him. And I think that there's something specifically here that I want to call out as the invitation to slowing down and what that gets to look like in life can actually be modeled by Jesus in some really beautiful ways. Consider the cosmic reality of what's happening on the cross. And him understanding the cosmic reality, him understanding this is the way to freedom for everyone. This is the way to victory over death. This is the way that all of those who are being oppressed by sin will be set free. He recognizes all of that and is living in all of that. And at the same time is seeing the people around him. He's forgiving these people because they have no idea what's happening right now. He talks to his mom. He has a conversation with the person next to him being crucified. And I think that the way of Jesus allows for us to slow down, even in the midst of high pace, even in the midst of so much, to both hold all of these things and hold a person in front of us. To hold ourselves, to actually recognize what's going on with me. One of the biggest questions that my therapist is making me ask myself right now is what's happening inside when all of a sudden everything gets amped up. Something will happen, I get amped up, and he's trying to train me that instead of responding, reacting out of my amped upness, to ask the question, what just happened and what's my response to it and my reaction right now? Is this a trigger? And if so, what am I doing in the midst of this trigger? I love what the African Bible commentary has to say specifically about this Matthew passage because I think it's just fascinating. Jesus summons the harassed and the helpless to come to him. He says that his burden is easy and that with him they're going to find rest, not exploitation and condemnation. And those words, exploitation and condemnation, specifically with us considering rest, all of a sudden started to feel pretty haunting. Do you feel exploited by your schedule? Do you feel condemned, not by the content of emails, but by the sheer mass of them? And whether or not you can get back to everybody within 24 hours in a good turnaround. Do you feel the condemnation of wanting so many things for your children and wanting to do so much for them and then not being able to do it? Or do you feel the reverse, the condemnation of doing everything and then feeling like I have their schedule so full because I'm trying to provide and do all of this, and there are all of these ways where condemnation starts to creep in when Jesus is inviting us to rest. This is a tool. It is. It's a tool. It's a tool to help us be more efficient. It's a tool for me to be able to see my mom real time on a phone call while she's in Texas. It's a tool to be able to connect with people, to celebrate birthdays, to listen to incredible music. And it's also a tool of exploitation. And I think a lot of times when we think about the exploitation that can happen with this, and I just turned my flashlight on, I am that person, you guys. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. I feel exploited right now, you guys. Like I feel condemned by a lot of you. Yeah, there he is up there, the geezer, turning on his flashlight. But a lot of times we think about phone and we immediately go to internet. We immediately go to social media and we think about the exploitation of so many others, right? I want you to recognize that you're being exploited by this. You are. You think you're in control? You're not. The notifications, the little red dots next to all the icons of the things that are going, pay attention to me first. Missed call. Here's a text. Oh, someone liked your post. There's a guy that he's been one of the founders for a lot of social media companies and all this kind of stuff. But the Atlantic magazine has actually referred to him as the conscience of Silicon Valley, because he's the guy that keeps raising his hand in meetings, going, guys, are we sure this is a good idea? And he has this whole bit where he talks specifically about the fact that slot machines make more money than baseball and basketball combined. Now, I want you to think about that. There is no one sitting in front of a slot machine that is going to be giving whoever it is that owns that machine millions of dollars. But it's little bits at a time. It's a penny slot, it's a nickel slot, it's a quarter slot, it's a dollar slot. And there's all of these micro moments where there are wealth and riches being stored up by people that have taken advantage of the addictive tendencies associated with slot machines. There are so many really, really smart people that are exploiting our minds and our neural pathways all of the time. What does slow and being slow look like in regards to technology? And I'm not a Luddite, like I'm glad I got a phone. But if we're thinking about it, we've got a chance. So I want to make it personal for a minute. Business, hurry, and my need for validation. How's that for a title? Jan Johnson has this beautiful quote that ties hurry to love. Comer does a great job of this in his book, where he actually talks about that love, joy, and peace actually are conversely irrelevant to hurry. That hurry cannot equal love, joy, or peace. And Jan Johnson says it this way, that hurry actually rips out 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Tim Chester wrote a book specifically on busyness, and he looks specifically at 6 ways that it captures our culture. And I would say captures Brian. I'm busy because I need to prove myself. Jeremy, you are not alone in feeling like a sham. And I got a feeling I'm not alone either. I'm busy because of other people's expectations. I'm busy because otherwise things get out of control. I'm busy because I prefer being under pressure. I can get a lot done when there's a time frame, right? I'm busy because I need money. And I'm busy because I want to make the most out of my life. And I feel like there are ways in which the church has no longer been counterculture and countercultural as it pertains to business, as it pertains to these, and where the culture would say, yeah, all that's true. Go be a boss. There are all of these studies specifically that have been happening for like the last 50 years about wealth and what wealth looks like. Do you realize 50, 60, 70 years ago, what wealth looked like was more leisure time? But now, what wealth looks like is I work 70 hours and I'm on my phone all the time. There are these studies where these people called futurists were predicting the future. And in 1930, there was a futurist that said he expected that his grandchildren would work no more than 2 hours a day because of technology and all the advancements of technology. And here's what's weird. It was true for a little while. There were all of these advancements that automated systems that had to be done by people. And so it meant that there was more free time. This is why rich people went to the club. This is why rich people spend a month on vacation. This is why rich people did all of this stuff. But somewhere along the way, we inverted it and we decided that what was actually better was more. That what was actually better was speed. That what actually was better was for me to have my identity propped up by proving myself, by meeting everyone's expectations, by not letting anything get out of control, by being under pressure always and being able to show myself that I could do it under pressure, by getting more money and by making the most out of my life. And somewhere along the way, the church said, yeah, that seems okay. And I want to put forward to you that over the next month, this is a critical part of your fellowship of Jesus, to recognize ways to slow down. And I'm there with you. About a month ago, I got to spend 8 days in Montana. And if you guys know, like the mountains and fly fishing, like just all the time. Let's go. And so I made arrangements for this rideshare service to drive me about an hour and a half outside of Missoula, Montana, deep into the wilderness at a trailhead and drop me off. And I waved at this guy that promised he was going to come back in 8 days. Yeah, exactly. Janet was pretty stressed too. Hey, but I made it. I'm here. But I'm out there and it's just me and the fish and my thoughts, which is like, oh my gosh, right? The last 4.5 days, I didn't see another person, like literally 0 people. And I am hours from anything. And it was awesome. 2 days, I didn't say a word. Like not a word, like no words came out of my mouth. If you guys know me, I'm an introvert. And so it was like my dream. But I also recognized something. The next 2 days that I was by myself, I started talking a lot to the animals. I was like, oh, look at you, you little deer. Like, you're just so cute. Or I'd catch a fish and I would be like, I would thank him. Thank you for getting on my fly, and I put him back. And so what I recognized is that even an introvert needs connection. There were a lot of things, though, that I realized, and I want to read some off. I tend to take a lot of reading material because it's like, like I'll read a book and always John Muir, like I'll pack a John Muir book and some other stuff. But this time, a lot of the stuff that I've been doing in therapy felt really important to kind of lean into, specifically when I was by myself and just with my thoughts. And so the only reading material that I took were 3 packets that my therapist gave me to do some self-interrogation. So that was brutal and really good. But there was also just a lot of other times. There's a lot of downtime. I mean, when you're by yourself and the sun doesn't go down until like 10:30 or 11 at night in Montana this time of the year. And so I've got a lot of hours to fish or just do something, And so I started making a list of all the things that I was taking back from Montana. And it's 24 things, which may be overwhelming for some of you. That feels about right for me. I'm not going to read all of them, but I want to read a couple because what I want to do is I want to frame out what moments of pause, what moments of slow can look like. I'm amazed at how many songs have been stuck in my head. Everything from worship songs to Taylor Swift. I would just be fishing and I am just singing the chorus of some song just in my head nonstop. Here's another thing. Always use 2 packs of Cocoa Mix. It's 1,000 times better. Okay? Here's another one. The simple, persistent act of tending a small campfire while waiting for nightfall is magical. A thunderstorm in the middle of the night while camping is equally terrifying and awesome. It is easy to pray in wild places. And I think my personal invitation in the midst of just a little bit of what was going on, and there's a lot more that's really specific about like stuff that I want in my heart and stuff I want out of my heart, stuff I want to do with Janet, stuff I want to stop doing to Janet, like all of the things, right? So all that's in there too. But I think a lot of times we think, okay, I'm just going to go away. I'm going to block out 3 hours, and me and Jesus are going to get all the stuff done. Okay? And it's going to be a spiritual experience, and I'm going to come back refreshed and restored. My face is going to glow like Moses. It's going to be awesome. That can happen. And also you can recognize, like number 23 says, it's hard to explain, but the stars look closer here. I've been to a lot of places where you can see so many stars, but they just hit different. I honestly have no idea, but I went outside, and it was like the stars were just right there. I was in a planetarium. And I got to worship for a minute in the pitch black, also being worried that there were bears all over the place. And I think one of the things that I realized that Justin McRoberts actually says really well is that rest is an opportunity for the goodness of my life to catch up with me. I think we're always running so fast that goodness is going, hey, your life has got some good stuff going on, but you can't see it because of how quickly you're moving. And the invitation for now, for our response time, and band, you can come on up. For this week, for this month, for this year, for the rest of your life. It's pretty simple and also incredibly difficult. Come to me. Get away with me and you will recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. So God, as we move into a time of response, we've got a chance to sing, to pray, to continue the conversation that you've been having. Pray that you just help us to be receptive to what you're up to and to be responsive, that we would in equal parts hear you and do something about it right now. If you're new to our community, we take about the next 15, 20 minutes to respond, to pray, to sing, to do all kinds of stuff. If you want to have someone pray for you about some of this or anything else, the prayer team will be over here and they'd love to pray for you. Feel free to sing. Feel free to just read the words, to just have that conversation with God. Do whatever it is that you would do. Let's lean in.